Welcome, Rabbi Taylor.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So I'll introduce Celio really quickly because he'll start his work. But this is Celio Bordin, perception artist from Italy, who was an artist showcased during the Venice Biennale at the first Humanizing the Icon exhibit, which is what kicked off this chat series and podcast during pandemic. Hi, Celio.
Hi, buongiorno a tutti. Nice to meet you. And then we have a good uh, show today. And then I'm very happy and very excited. Let's do it.
Yes, so Celio will be transforming the energy of our talk into a live drawing. So we'll let you go do your work.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll talk to you at the end.
I'm really excited to see this, by the way.
Yeah, me too. It's always something.
Cool.
So, Rabbi, first tell us, where are you geographically?
So geographically, I'm in a city called Plantation, Florida, and it's in the Fort Lauderdale area, South Florida.
Okay, great. Have you been based there for a long time?
I was born here and grew up here in this area, and was living in New Jersey for a while, but we've been back in South Florida for about almost 11 years now. So, and
Oh,
I love it here. Yeah, wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
oh, beautiful. And it seems a lot of people are moving to Florida during COVID times. Have you noticed that?
I have. We it's every day there are people flocking to. I mean, Florida's a great place to live, and financial reasons are also good. It's good for business. It's good for weather, and it's got a lot of perks.
And so how has COVID been for you? Like, I have to ask that, of course. Like, how's this
Yeah,
last year been?
yeah. I mean, I like everybody else. I'm completely COVIDed out, and and it's been, it's everyone has their own unique challenge. We have, thank God, 6 kids in the house, and
Oh,
before school started, it was 6 months of the kids basically at home for a lot of that time,
wow.
and so that was its own unique challenge. And some folks had the challenge for 6 months of not having anyone in their home. So I mean, there were everyone's got their own set of challenges through this time, and I'm glad that we can see like a light coming at the end of the tunnel, and that the vaccine is out and it's being distributed, and God willing, in the not too distant future, things will get a semblance of normalcy again, and we can get back to things, living life.
Absolutely, yes. So what has your role been in your community in terms of during this time specifically? Has that been
I mean, yeah, I mean, things have changed because of the fact that our normal crowd, which was over 100 people on a Saturday morning, was drastically reduced, and we've had services a good chunk of the time once things were able to open back up in Florida, but everything is socially distanced, and even still, with mask wearing and social distancing, there's still a good chunk of people that are not comfortable coming back yet, and slowly but surely we see the trickle back as the vaccine has come out and people are beginning to get it. It's been something that has, thank God, been a light at the end of the tunnel that we are seeing. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, I want to give a little backstory to how you and I connected. It was through my friend Sean Kanan, who was actually the last guest on the show, who is an actor that I've collaborated with as a filmmaker. And he introduced us. What is your connection to Sean? He was so excited about like the synergy with you and your progressive philosophies and humanizing the icon. But what is your sort of history with Sean?
So Sean and I became friends about a year ago, where I asked him to be on a YouTube channel show that I was doing.
Okay.
And yeah, and he agreed. I liked him. I reached out. I don't remember it was through somebody else. I remember him in Karate Kid Part 3. I
Yeah.
always liked that role. I was actually growing up. He's probably around 20 years my senior, maybe a little less. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But maybe let's say 15 years at least. But so growing up, I was kind of scared of him in his role in the Karate Kid movie. He was the bad guy,
Yes.
but it was good to connect with him. And then really from then on, we really just hit it off, and we speak on a regular basis now. And there's a lot of good energy that has come from that. So I'm really happy about that, and I'm glad that he introduced us.
Me too. And I was actually so surprised about the discussion that I had with him and just his connection to humanizing and like the law of attraction and just different sort of universal constructs and ideas. It was really powerful, and it was out of that part of the conversation that he connected us.
Okay.
So I want to go into that next. Like, what sort of attracted you to even the phrase humanizing the icon, and then that can lead into your work, because I know you have books and philosophies, and I'd love to hear just some highlights.
Sure. So I mean, the way he described it was humanizing the icon. That sometimes we tend to think of, I guess, a person or a role or whatnot as almost like some sort of character, or we have a misconception of people based on either their titles or on their positions or on their some sort of stereotypical model that we mold somebody to. And humanizing the icon, the way again it was described to me, was sort of like breaking through that a little bit and getting to know the person as an individual, as opposed to their title or role or way that we may assume them to be.
Exactly. Like persona versus the real person.
Yeah.
So, okay, so people have their conceptions, right, of someone who is a rabbi. How can you tell us about your journey in terms of why you chose to play that role? Yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah. So I mean, the I would say one of the biggest jobs that I have in my life, especially not only as a rabbi but as an Orthodox rabbi,
Yeah.
that's like something that people really have a preconceived notion on. That I think a certain way, and that I'm going to look at someone a certain way, and that everyone has this um, very distinct cookie cutter model of what they're expecting to get. And I would say that's certainly on a weekly basis, people are just like, wow, this is not what I expected at all, as far as viewpoints and non-judgmental attitude. And I think people feel that they're going to be judged, that they're going to be looked at a certain way, and that my views are a certain way. And meanwhile, when we have a conversation, it's like, wow, that's not what I expected at all. So I actually like the idea of shattering people's preconceived notions on a regular basis, which is a good thing, because the preconceived notions are not particularly good. They're very stereotypical. That a rabbi, and to add insult to injury, an Orthodox rabbi is going to be very judgmental and very black and white and very cookie cutter and closed-minded, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a path. It was truly a calling, I guess, is the way that people describe it. When I was 15 years old, I decided that this is the way that I wanted to live my life, and that came about through a pretty easy stirring of, I like to call it the stirring of my soup, stirring of my pot. I liked people, I liked teaching, I liked study, I liked spirituality. So you stir that in a pot. Rabbi seems like the a pretty good fit for that, and that has what has led me throughout the rest of my life and endeavors to go on the path that I've gone.
And so what are one of the main, I guess, things that shock people about you in terms of being an Orthodox rabbi? What sets you apart that you've heard or that you know about yourself?
Right. I mean, I don't know that it's me per se, but I think a lot of people have a very specific way that they would think of an Orthodox rabbi. And I think number one is the non-judgmentalness,
Okay.
if that's even a real word. But
You know what
but
you mean.
people feel like they're going to be judged, and I think a lot of the reason that people um, sometimes have an aversion in general to religious affiliation, identifying specifically with a religious denomination. I hear all the time, like, I don't believe in organized religion. I'm not a part of organized religion. And a lot of times, first of all, I'm like, well, then you're good because I'm not very organized. But but the idea is I think people oftentimes feel that either they're judged, or if they're in organized religion, that it's going to be too cookie cutter for them to really explore things and think about things and discuss things in it with any sort of depth or expanding in a way that they would like to. And and Judaism in particular is something that discussion is something that's welcome. It's not something discouraged. Questions are something that's welcome for discussion as opposed to something discouraged. And I think when people get a taste of that, there's a sense of enjoyment and a sense of satisfaction and relief even when recognizing that that's what they're going to get, as opposed to a cookie cutter magic 8-ball response as to, like, okay, can I do this or can I not do this? It's either yes or no. It's much more nuanced than that, I think.
Like, it's more, well, I think what you're saying too is it's very accepting.
Very accepting. Not that I or anyone is accepting of all behaviors, but accepting of all peoples. In other words, I could, and I think that's an important idea that gets lost in society a lot of the times as well. That oftentimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if I don't like something, or I disagree with what somebody does or even what somebody believes, I also reject the person. And what I'm saying is that you can disagree with a person, what they believe, or disagree with how a person acts or whatnot, and still be accepting and even embracing of the person.
And what would you say the core values of Orthodox Judaism are? Like, if you were to sum up.
Sure. I mean, the fundamental belief, the fundamental idea in traditional Judaism is that God gave the Torah to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. And this is basically the instruction manual for life, the blueprint of creation. And through engaging in the commandments and the lifestyle and values that are laid out in the Torah, we connect to God and bring godliness to the world. And ultimately, through enough people engaging with the world in the way that represents God's will, then we make the world into a dwelling place for God. In other words, when I look around, after enough people are engaged in this particular worldview, that the world becomes a godly place. That the very physical existence that was initially created to obscure godliness becomes a place that reveals godliness.
Yes, which does actually sound like the law of attraction.
There are certain similar similar expressions of that.
In
Absolutely.
terms of consciousness as a tool for manifesting our world into godliness, or however you want to call it, I guess.
Right. I think in the law of attraction wording, usually it's like the universe. And I always find that when what some people call the universe is really just a synonym for what I'm calling God.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think I mean, I might want to ask you about this, but I think when sometimes people, and I'm not saying you do this, but I've found that some people are more comfortable with the term universe, mainly because it's less, there's less responsibility attached. And what I mean by that is that if I believe in there's a God and that God had a specific purpose in creating the world, and I might have to, change my diet, change my weekend plans, and whatever, and do things that are, maybe outside of what I am comfortable doing. Whereas calling, something like sort of like a divine consciousness is less intimidating and also doesn't require as much on my part as far as what I quote unquote need to do
on the part of the human.
On the part of the human,
right? Yeah, I can see that, which I find interesting, because I personally believe we have a sense of responsibility across the board, whether you're practicing spirituality in a religion or in this cosmic. To me, they are sort of interchangeable. I mean, that's how I see it. I do, because like what you just described as godliness and the world, and the more people that put their intention and attention and focus in a certain way, then the more we kind of lift the veil to the divine nature or the godliness of the world. Reminded me of these universal laws, which I guess Kabbalah gets into on like a numerology, astrological, scientific way too, right? And is Kabbalah something that would be also integrated into Orthodox Judaism? Is it like somewhere in there?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is yes yes in actuality, but what a lot of people have been taught as representing Kabbalah, Kabbalistic thinking and whatnot, it may be at great distance from what traditional Jewish Kabbalistic works are describing. I think in the last 20 or 30 years, different organizations have made Kabbalah into sort of a fad. You have celebrities who are into it, and they're wearing red strings, and they're drinking only Kabbalah water and whatever it is, and so it's not meant to be something where you're covering yourself in amulets and scanning through the Zohar, and this is not the mainstream idea of what Kabbalah is all about. You are correct that a lot of those concepts are addressed in Jewish mysticism.
Right.
However, the way that I'm just pointing out as just like a point of reference,
No, it's
that
good.
what a lot of people call Kabbalah is more like a Hollywood version or just a fad version, a money-making version of actual sacred principles.
That's so interesting. And how do you feel about that, in the sense that there's that aspect that it's become in vogue, and Hollywood, and yet at the same time it's been an entry point for a lot of people to actually discover their connection to spirituality in some form, maybe people that wouldn't have even explored, because it was so in vogue. It kind of like got them there, and now they're actually discovering whatever it is. Maybe it's just that they want to be meditating, or maybe it's just that they feel some connection that they're discovering. So is it like, does it bother you, I mean, just to be direct, that Kabbalah went in that direction, or do you see the silver lining too?
Well, I mean, I certainly see the silver lining. And I like that you described it as a silver lining, because the silver lining means, I mean, in your wording, you actually kind of referenced that what the idea of a silver lining means. Overall, it's not such a great situation, but there's a silver lining in it. That no one says silver lining as like that. It's like, if it's something's good, it's good. And the silver lining is that something's overall not so great, but there's a silver lining. There's a good aspect that comes out from it. So, I mean, I think I'm kind of on that track where I do see the silver lining, and I know for a number of people, it has been the very first thing in their journey of exploration, and it has led people to explore and ultimately wind up in the what I would call the correct place, or in the traditional place.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like anything else, if something is a medium, is a mechanism for something after it, oftentimes it's good. If it becomes an end in and of itself, it can be not as good. And
Mm-hmm.
so if somebody thinks that that's the end all and be all of what Jewish mysticism is about, and and sort of misassociates what it is about, then I would say that it's not such a great idea. But if it does lead them on the path to uh, the traditional direction, I would say that would ultimately be a good thing that came out from it.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. I mean, a lot in
As a
the
springboard, I think
springboard.
it's okay. But as philosophy in its own right, I would say not so great.
Okay. And I think a lot of people have this point of view with regard to many different aspects of religion and spirituality now. Do you feel the collective is more consciously searching in a way than you've seen in past decades?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I like to think about it as that a lot of people are thirsty. They're in a desert devoid, and they're parched of spirituality. Problem is that when you're thirsty, you have to drink something. I think people are rushing to just drink anything, and not looking at the contents of what they're drinking. They don't know what to drink that's going to satisfy the thirst. And I see people putting what should be spiritual energy into molding their life into things like their political worldview, and that becomes basically like their religion, that
Really?
it takes the place, right? Their values and their purpose and their all their enthusiasm and activism and whatever is all dedicated to their political leanings. And it's like, well, that's not what's going to quench this thirst that you have inside of you for spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And again, politics has its time and place, and everything in your life has its place. That's fine. But when you try to quench your thirst of meaning, of purpose, of connection with the divine, you're not going to find it outside of an actual connection with God. I mean, there are things that lead us in the right direction, and things that are good and can be very beneficial to us. Meditation and certain spiritual practices. These are all good things and a person heading in the right direction. But ultimately, like, what's the end goal? What's the end game over here? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I find when a lot of people say the word spirituality, they they're calling what they're calling spirituality, but I think a lot of times it is really referencing something that is good for like relaxation or for calm or which are all good things. But let's not call something spirituality if it's not spirituality. Like, meditation is good and it has its place, but a lot of the things that people are using meditation for are essentially a way to sort of you know uh, calm their nerves down, calm anxiety, again, which is a good thing.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
knocking that, but that may not be um, what the practice that they're doing may not be spirituality.
Right. Right. It's really
And so
interesting.
there's a limited benefit that's going to come from that, as far as quenching their innermost desires to connect with with spirituality, with God, and with purpose and meaning in life. Again, it has its place, and everyone needs relaxation, everyone needs focus, mindfulness. All of these things are wonderful and are very helpful for our overall well-being. But ultimately, like, if the core and the real purpose of why am I here, what am I doing, what is the purpose of my life and our lives in general, there's going to be a void that's not going to be quenched so fast.
Mm-hmm. And what is the purpose of our lives?
Well, I mean, collectively, our collective mission. And see, one of the interesting things in traditional Judaism is that a person doesn't have to be of the Jewish faith in order to be like in good standing with God.
Yeah.
And so being a moral person, as described in the what we call the 7 laws of Noah. Everyone knows the story of Noah and the flood, and the world was so corrupt that God had to sort of start over. And so Noah and his family are the ones that are saved from this catastrophe. And God makes a covenant with Noah because on the biblical model, we're all kind of we're all descendants, we're all cousins, we're all great grandchildren of Noah. And so from Noah's time, it was solidified that humanity acting in a moral way, God gave 7 laws, right? 7 moral laws were given to Noah for all of his descendants, and any human being who upholds those 7 laws, those 7 moral principles, in God's eyes is good to go. So I will never seek converts. It's one of the things that distinguishes Judaism from many other faiths is that we're not going out there knocking doors and trying to get people to come. In fact, if somebody wants to convert, typically they're kind of like not pushed away, but kind of just like whoa, like why?
Yeah.
And the idea is that you have a role in this world already. You don't need to be a Jew to be in good standing with God and to have the purpose that God wants. So the idea is that for humanity, that our job is to express godliness in the world through the instructions of the Torah, and then for the general human population of nearly of 7 billion people. That means to live a lifestyle that is moral, that in 7 specifically defined ways: belief in God, not cursing God, not murdering, not committing certain acts of immorality, not stealing, to not be cruel to animals is actually one of them, right? Eating the limb from a live animal, not being cruel to animals. And the 7th law is establishing courts of justice that uphold the other 6. And from a traditional Jewish standpoint, if humanity is operating in that capacity on their own free will, then what happens is that this world, which was created as a place that obscures godliness, God gave us free will, because think about this: the ultimate expression of godliness, the ultimate real revelation of godliness, is that godliness be revealed even in the place that was created to conceal godliness. God created specifically a physical world which obscures godliness, which hides godliness. And at the same time, God gives us free will, and through our own engagement with the darkness and the concealment of that this world has, we choose to do the right thing. Well, we've just revealed godliness in the place that was created to conceal godliness, which is the ultimate revelation of godliness.
Uh-huh.
And so that is our as far as collectively as humankind is concerned, that's our goal. The Jewish people have added commandments on that we're required to do to bring spirituality into the world. But we're all in this together, and on an individual level, each person as an individual has a unique piece of the puzzle to contribute to that global goal. And the way I express that and the way you express that might be very different, but it's all meant to go towards the same goal. Some people do it as a singer, some people do it as a writer, some people do it as an actor or actress, some people do it as a rabbi or a teacher. Whatever it is, there is a way that you, with your own unique talents personally and your own unique abilities personally, can contribute in the puzzle piece of making this world into a place that radiates the divine.
That's beautiful. And so I ask now about the soul. Does this connect to the soul?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you speak to that? Because when you talk about these pieces that we each are, of this whole tapestry, I immediately see soul. Like everyone is kind of on a unique mission within this common landscape. Sometimes I see it as like a bubble bath and we're each a bubble, you know, with
Okay.
a unique formation, but we're all made up of the same elements. And so
Yeah.
how do you speak about soul or to the idea of soul?
Sure. Well, our soul is a piece of the divine that's inside of us, that enlivens us, and that ultimately always keeps us connected with the source of the divine. If you will, we're kind of like it, we're all sparks or torches that are taken from the grand bonfire, if you will. They're all made of the same stuff from the same source, but all individual, unique expressions
Yes.
of that. And so each soul, each person is given a particular mission, right, with particular unique talents and unique abilities and unique passions, and born to unique situations and put in unique situations, right? My situation is not your situation, it's not your neighbor's situation, it's not your brother or sister's situation. You could grow up in the same house, the same neighborhood, the same economic status, the same everything. It's all, you could have all the same, but your engagement with it is going to be different than someone who even grew up in your same house, because of your nature and your nurture and your particular things that you have proclivities towards and you have enjoyment to and passions to. And so with that, each person is meant to take their soul spark, their connection with God, and manifest that again through the general principles that the Torah lays out for every human being, but take your unique expression of that and add it to the world. And you know what? You and I and Celio and everybody watching, we each have our own unique aspect that only we can contribute. I can't do what you were meant to do, and you can't do what I was meant to do, and neither can Moses, and neither can any. That God never made anything or anyone superfluous. Everyone who's here is here for a reason. Everyone has a unique, individualized purpose. I was once talking in a high school, and as I was walking through the halls in the high school, there was this poster of a monkey coming out of the garbage can. And the caption on the poster said, "I know that I'm special because God don't make no junk."
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful message, because at the end of the day, the fact that you're here, the fact that God breathed the breath of life into you and gave you X amount of years and certain passions and talents and abilities, that you're here for something that no one else in human history ever could do before and ever can do now and ever can do in the future. And so that's a huge, I don't want to call it like a weight on our shoulders, right? But that's a huge honor. It's like I've been given a mantle of importance and purpose and God's ultimate mission in this world that only I can do.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's massive. And so what happens to that spark when the body dies, transitions?
So the way that people tend to think of heaven and hell is a very basic, like it's almost like a baby version of the way that it's kind of described in classical Jewish texts. The way that people tend to think of it is like heaven and hell are like places. And heaven looks like winged babies flying on clouds, playing the harp, floating through the sky. And hell is a place with devils and pitchforks and lava and goblins, right? And so it's not like that really at all. It's the soul's. It's a soul experience. And basically, when your soul is finished its mission, its time in this world, your soul encounters truth. Your soul encounters spirituality. Your soul encounters God. And if you lived a life in accordance with the way that God wanted us to live our lives, the reason he put us in this world, well, then being exposed to God and to truth is going to be a very enjoyable experience, right? But the same soul who wasn't in line and didn't live up to their purpose, so when they're exposed to truth and see all of the sort of the range of of where they actually live to the way that they were meant to live, that contrast will be very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're being exposed to the same God, the same truth, but that's something that you will perceive in your own unique way very differently. It can either be a very heavenly experience, very pleasurable experience, or a very painful experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you won front row tickets to the opera. Okay, well, if you love the opera, that's like the best gift you can ever get. And if you don't like the opera, it's like the worst curse.
Yeah.
It's the same ticket, right? But for one person, it's like the most amazing thing, and for the other person, it's hell on earth. So that's kind of the way it is. It's a soul experience rather than like if I go 100 light years up, I'm in heaven. If I go 100 light years down, I'm in hell, and I'm there for all eternity. No, the soul is constantly undergoing a process in order to fulfill its purpose and its mission. And there is the possibility that if a person left certain things undone, that God can be kind to that soul and allow them another opportunity to correct something. But the way that reincarnation or such a thing is viewed in traditional Judaism is something different than the way that we tend to sometimes think about these things as well. Where in some faiths, in particular in the East, it's almost like, well, if you live your life this way, you get to come back as however you want. Like, I want to be a fish next time, or I want to be a whatever. Like it's not so much like that. It's based on how you engaged in your purpose. God can be kind to you and allow you another shot at correcting a certain aspect of that purpose, and you'll be granted in a new body or in a new lifetime the proper tools and abilities and lifespan in order to accomplish that mission. One thing, for example, many great Jewish sages over time, when they would see somebody who had clear physical or mental disabilities, they would actually stand in their presence. And you think to yourself, well, why? What's that all about? And so the idea is that the reason that they would stand is because that obviously this soul is a very high and lofty soul that has come down. Because remember, in our lifetime, we're only given the tools and abilities that we need to make a certain correction in our soul. And so if a person was given very limited tools and abilities, that means that their soul is already very high and very connected and very, very uplifted, and just has a little bit that it needs to do, and that's why it was granted limited tools or limited time on this earth. You could say the same thing as well about things like when people pass away much younger than expected, that they had a very limited mission because they were a very lofty soul.
Mm-hmm. Do any of your books speak to these topics?
Both of them.
Okay, what are they called?
The first one is called Pillars of Faith, which really kind of tackles in a reasonable way why traditional Judaism believes what we believe. Mm-hmm. Why should I believe there's a God? Why should I believe the Torah was given at Sinai? What's the purpose of this world, et cetera, and sort of goes through some of the common questions and misconceptions that people have about the Jewish faith in particular, but many of the chapters about faith in general.
Okay, perfect. And the other one?
The other one's called The Jewish Guide to the Mysterious, which goes into all sorts of paranormal topics and gives a classic Jewish approach, a traditional Jewish approach to things like dreams and astrology and angels and demons and heaven and hell and reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And if people want to reach out to you, they can on your website.
Yeah, the website. I would say just send me a Facebook friend request. I'm on Facebook. I'd love to get to know you or whatever. If spirituality, that's another interesting thing. If spirituality or in particular from a traditional Jewish standpoint is something that has interest to you, I actually have an online study program, an online learning program that we have members, and it's done in a private Facebook group, and you can ask questions on a regular basis, and we learn every day for 15 minutes or so. But a lot of people who have various religious backgrounds and either jived or didn't jive, or jived in sort of, and are trying to explore things, and are curious to find out from a traditional Jewish standpoint. We have currently over 300 members in the program. So if that's something that you would be interested in being a part of as well, I would certainly invite any of the listeners to become a part of that as well.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like you definitely covered humanizing the icon, because I've been talking a lot about human as the icon, just what we are as embodied souls, and you set us on that path. So I'm excited to read your books, honestly. And also, just the last question before Celio tells us about the art.
Sure.
The time we're in right now, in terms of overall like human development and the collective expansion, what does this time represent to you or to your spirituality?
Well, I think we're getting mighty close to the time where godliness is something that is openly apparent, and sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it feels like actually quite the opposite. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the greatest lesson can be taught and can come out of things that on the surface seem to be the opposite. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a story. Imagine there's a teacher that wants to teach the concept of silence to their class. And so the teacher writes the word silence on the board. And as the kids come into class, and before class is starting, everyone starts talking. And as things typically happen in a classroom, if the teacher doesn't step in, the noise level gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And this is all before the teacher's just letting the kids all talk. All of a sudden, the teacher takes out his yardstick and smacks the board on the word silence, and everyone startles and his mouth is zipped. And the teacher has taught what the concept of silence is by allowing the opposite of silence to express itself. Meaning, the louder the students get and the harder the teacher bashes the board, the more clearly the exact opposite can be brought out.
Yes.
Even in a way better than just explaining to them what the concept of silence is. The louder the class gets and the harder he smacks the board, the more clearly silence, which is the exact opposite, the more clearly that will be expressed. So yes. I think that's what's going on in our world today, that it seems, at least superficially, that things are headed in not so great directions. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of questions and nervousness and strife and people squabbling over nonsense. But I think at the core, we are kind of looking for something. There's a great thirst that people are really just not finding.
Yeah.
And one by one, when people are headed in the right direction and do find it, they see, oh my gosh, this is what I was looking for. This is it. It. I got it.
Sounds like you're talking about dualism a little bit too. It's like your angels can look like the devil sometimes, in a way. It's like the contrast is what kind of can be the great lesson unveiled, I guess.
Sometimes
really, yeah, it's really powerful. I could talk to you for the rest of the day, literally, and we will talk more. But for now, thank you so much. And Celio is going to explain his art to us before we sign off, which is really beautiful, Celio.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And then it's very interesting talk today. And it's coming, this artwork, my point of view, my read after, because I don't know what I do when I draw. But my point of view is our guests have memory in DNA, and this is so the ancient people, the family from century is still live inside of him.
Oh.
And we have a very thin line of the head, you saw, but it's like it's open. The mind is open and projection on the God or on the universe of the totally love is coming from universe and projection in the family.
Mm.
This I think
Wow.
is a mother, but we have son and daughter. Son is Jewish too. Is coming perfect. I don't understand what this is. These things. I can read this, but symbology is something. I don't know. Maybe he knows something about these things, but is symbologist. And we have a lot of family. Something is behind, want to see. Something is, yes, I am your family. I'm proud of my dad, my story, my ancient family. This is,
Wow.
this is what's happened. For sure is production of love, because the production coming from the light, from the universe, for respectful life, for honest life, and proud of this big family.
Wow. Ancient wisdom.
Very cool.
That's so neat. Thank you so much, Celio.
Thanks,
Are you
Celia.
welcome? Are you welcome? Are
We'll
you
send it
welcome?
to you too because you'll probably catch other things inside of it. We'll send you the drawing.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Thank you. This was amazing. I feel really inspired.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
glad.
Yes. Okay, so we'll sign off. This episode will be on our YouTube channel later today, Humanizing the Icon. The audio will be on Apple and Spotify, and
Great.
we'll get the playback up on Instagram.
All right. Sounds good.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a
All
beautiful
right.
day. Okay,
All the best.
bye.
Bye bye.
Everyone.